Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is February 3rd, 2025. All right, so we are finally in warmer weather, so I am very happy about that. I'm also happy that I see that some more people have subscribed. So I wanted to thank you for subscribing to the channel. And if you want to introduce it to some new people, please do. We are trying to gain our membership so that we can get the word out on facts and details so that we can make America fair and prosperous again. Today, I want to talk about U.S. federal government policy on immigration, but from the perspective of why American voters are not believing the rhetoric from the Catholic Church and the mainstream media on the current immigration policy. I've got some examples that I want to share with you. The first one will be from the Catholic Church and then the mainstream media. Now, mainstream media I'm talking about are CNNs, NBCs, NPR. Those are mainstream media. That's how I define them. So I wanted to throw that out first. Now, here's something that's interesting. So I pulled some information because I did a little research to talk about the perception of immigration. So, so when President Trump took office, there was a change in how the federal government prioritizes which populations without legal status should be arrested. Now, that's an important point. Federal officials issue guidance on the practice of prosecutorial discretion, which is the power federal prosecutors have to decide whether a case against a non citizen is actually a priority and should be pursued. Then the last piece of that is the bottom line is the transition from a Democrat to a Republican administration often leads to guidance that puts limits on prosecutors' use of discretion to get people out of the country. So that's why we saw during the election cycle, the President Trump is saying, hey, we need to prioritize and get these people out of the country, whereas the Democrats under Biden said, well, we'll get to it eventually. Now, that is important because we need to set the table for focusing on people committing crimes and coming here illegally and then committing more crimes. That's what we're talking about. And that's what the Trump administration is currently talking about. So the reason that I'm setting the table, so to speak, with this first is there is a perception that people who are here legally, who are from the South American countries, they are being illegally deported out of the country. Why do I say that? So there's a quick story here. So my niece in North Carolina used to go to private school with her friend was Hispanic apparently, and the parents had jobs and were paying their taxes. Well, guess what they're doing? Based on the mainstream media reporting, they are going into hiding. Now, why are they going into hiding? When their perception is that they will be deported because they are Hispanic. And you got to call it out, which I don't think is true. And that's why I'm setting the table here to what the president's policy actually is and what some people think the and what the perception of the policy is. We are not deporting people who are here illegally. Currently, we're going after the criminals. Okay, so now there's something called the Catholic News Agency. Some of you are probably familiar with it. So I went to it, and there is an issue here that's interesting. Now, this is from the Catholic News Agency. This isn't me talking. So they, meaning the Catholic Church, okay, so ICE agents newly empowered to make arrests at places like churches and schools without need to seek a superior's approval have reportedly already been ramping up arrests in some major cities. So the Catholic News Agency and the Catholic Church, they are concerned about people being arrested who are here illegally and who have committed crimes. So there's an Archbishop, Tom Broglia, who said that some provisions of the immigration orders are deeply troubling and will have a negative consequence, many of which will harm the most vulnerable among us. Then a different bishop, Michael Burbridge, released a statement responding to Trump's administration's deportation efforts on Friday, January 31st. Echoing Pope Francis, I encourage President Trump and congressional leaders to develop a national immigration policy that reflects the Catholic commitment to human dignity and common good. Okay, I'm not going to read any more of that. What is the Catholic Church talking about? Now, the Catholic Church is an international agency. And so the first question is, are they releasing articles to Russia about them invading the Ukraine? In Italy, do they have a liberal immigration policy where people can come in no matter what the circumstances, because their values are, hey, this is a human and we have to take care of them. That's what they're basically saying. If I had to tell you, I would tell you that they are not doing that. Now, why are they doing it to the USA and coming after this administration? Well, we are a God-fearing country, in my point of view, and the Catholic Church, knows that they can talk to us about things and we will at least listen to it. So with Russia, with the South American countries that are forcing by their policies their citizens to leave, they won't talk to them because, quite frankly, they seem to be afraid of them. So I'll talk more about that in a second. This is what's coming from the Catholic Church. That's the bottom line. And it is a little concerning that that's how they feel, that if they have people here illegally who have committed crimes, that they don't have to release them to be deported. That's a little scary. Now, next is the mainstream media. So I pulled this off. All right, so Holman, he's the ICE chief. So at the annual meeting of the National Sheriff's Association in Washington, D.C., the administration was working to allow U.S. sheriffs to detain migrants in their jails using state-level standards instead of the more rigorous U.S. immigration and customs enforcement guidelines. Now, this is important, and I pulled it from a mainstream source online. However, the mainstream media doesn't report it like this. And what I really mean is, currently under the federal law, the federal government can, depending on who's in charge, they can control how they get to the cases of people here illegally that have committed crimes, which blows my mind. So what the administration is trying to do is they are trying to get them beds under the sheriffs whenever they put people in jail so that they can make sure that these criminals are locked up. Now, isn't that strange that the policy is such that the illegal immigrant criminal actually has more rights than the regular criminal does in the U.S.? And so if we're looking at a policy, why aren't we reporting that illegal immigrants seem to have more power based on the information I have available to me from the law? Also, the Trump administration, as you're aware of, added 30 detention beds at the migrant camp in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and more at a military base in Aurora, Colorado. Now, I had to dig to find that there was actually going to be beds in Aurora, Colorado, that the U.S. military controls, that they can house the criminals. And as you're seeing, what I'm saying is, under the federal law, the illegal migrants, have more rights than the regular criminals do. And the bottom line on this is that we need immigration reform. First of all, the rules should be less. We don't need to make the laws more complicated. No other country does this, right? So if you are in Italy, since I used them before, if you are there illegally, they deport you. There's no process of, well, we have to prioritize it. Do you think that the Russians do that? Do you think that the Chinese do that? And shockingly, in the countries, the South American countries, they are very strict on their immigration laws too. And this notion that we are a country of immigrants is true. But in today's world, it doesn't make sense, and we have to stay laser focused. No more perception issues. We are deporting criminals that are here illegally, or migrants that are here on work visas that are committing crime. And this should be simple. And the American voter is tired of the rhetoric coming from these other people fighting to keep someone in the country that shouldn't be here in the first place. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Please subscribe to my channel and pass on the message of facts and details. Have a great day.